Hello and welcome to Simple Index University video 201. In this course we're going to be taking a look at the basics of an OCR configuration. We're going to talk about how to create an actual OCR field, and then how do we capture the correct values off of our page when we're doing that OCR. We have a couple of options in terms of reading the text of the entire page, setting zones, and we'll look at all of that as we go along. So for this job we're using the read invoices with Zone OCR that's included in the samples folder that installs with Simple Index. So if you're playing the home game, feel free to follow along. And before we jump into the configuration and everything, let's just run this job and see what it's doing. So we're copying all the files over to the processing folder as always, and then it's going to bring in the OCR engine and quickly go through these files and capture the information. So you can see we're finding an account number over here, we're finding an order number, and we're also picking up the company. And one of the newer things that's in Simple Index over here is this text window that's available to you in addition to the pages and files windows that have been there for a while. So you can actually see the zone that it read in each case. So you can see, like right here with the account number, it's saying field account number, and then it read all of this text and yet only gave us back 8675048. So how did it do that? We're going to take a look at that. So let's just end out of this job right now, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the configuration wizard. And so if we go to, let's first go to the OCR tab and take a look at some options there before we actually get to the fields. And so you can see we have a few things here that come up right away. We have enable full page OCR. So if we didn't want to do this as a zone job, if we needed to read all the text on the page, or if you're wanting full page PDFs, full text PDFs rather, at the end of the process, you would enable this feature. We also have, if you're bringing in full text PDFs, you don't have to have Simple Index go through and read all of the text on the page itself. You can just skip that if the OCR text is already present. And then right here we have the fast OCR, which basically is kind of a shortcut to changing which engine we're going to use. It uses the Simple OCR engine. So speaking of engines, let's take a look down here. You can see we have several choices here. So if you're running Simple Index Standard, you'll have the Standard engine and the Simple OCR engine. So Standard is a royalty-free engine called Tesseract, and then Simple OCR is our homegrown OCR engine that's been around for quite a while now. If you step up to the OCR edition of Simple Index or the Professional edition of Simple Index, you will get the Professional engine included, which is Abby Fine Reader. And then strictly in the Professional edition of Simple Index, you get these last three here, which are using Textract options, which can do text, forms, and invoices as the name suggests there, and that's actually using a cloud service provided by Amazon, and that's covered in a separate video, so please check that out if you're interested in doing handwriting recognition, which the AWS system can do. Also, if you have these specific types where you're trying to find values off of repeating forms or off of invoices. So we're going to stay on Professional for right now, even though we are going to do the fast OCR on this job, because as you saw with these documents, the information's pretty well defined. It's in its own little region. Those are good, black ink on white page copies, so we can use the fast engine and save a little time. If these were more complex images or they weren't good quality scans, the originals weren't printed very well, that's when we step up to a better engine like the Professional engine and turn off the fast OCR. We also have some settings here in the advanced category, which include the various languages that are available, and then we also have some options in terms of outputting the Zone OCR data to text files. So if you need a separate text file that just has the Zone OCR data, that's a possibility. And we also have some options for zooming into the zone whenever you click on one of the index fields over here. And you'll notice that if I turn on the enable full page OCR, our options right here for outputting the full page OCR file and only performing the OCR on the first page become available. So features that are only available with the options you've selected before them. So that's true throughout the interface on Simple Index, something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's go over and take a look at our index fields. Now this job's already set up, obviously, because we just ran it, but I'm going to edit these fields, and it'll be the exact same process if you're setting a field up for the first time. So let's just go in here and take a look at our account number, and we're going to edit that. And so the first thing, it always brings you to what type of field it is. Obviously, we're talking about OCR fields here, so we'll stick with that. And on your next screen, you have the index field information. So what's the name we're giving an account number? Is it required? Meaning, can we leave that value blank and go on with our processing, or does it have to be filled in? So we're filling it in here, and then we're going to use it as the folder name in our output location. So whenever we look at these files at the end of the process, the account number will be the name of the folder, and we'll see that in a little bit. And then what kind of text matching are we doing? You don't have to do any. You can just set a zone and pick up whatever's there. In this case, we're doing template. So we're going to match some shorthand, some wildcards that are built into Simple Index. All right, let's move on. So here we have where we set the zones. And you can see this already has some zone information filled in. This is just giving you some instruction on where the zone is. You're not expected to actually enter these coordinates. And to actually set those coordinates, we're just going to set zone. And that'll take us into this separate window here, and we're going to open one of the files in the input folder. And so we'll just grab this first one here. And you can see there's already a zone drawn here. So let's just, we'll draw a new one. We'll make it a slightly different size here. And you just start at the top left, go to the bottom right, however far you need to go, and we'll leave it like that. So you can see I'm capturing a lot of information, like we saw back on that text view when I first ran the job. And so how are we going to make sure we just get the 8675048? Let's save this zone, and we'll move on to the next region, which is your template. So here we have the wildcards essentially that are built into Simple Index. You can see there, pound is a number, A is a letter, and so on. And if you move down, there's actually some phrases that we can capture too. So there's a %date%, which captures any date. If it's a date with a 2-digit year, we have something for that. And as you scroll through the list here, you can see there's social security numbers, amounts of money. And if you want to use one of these, you can just simply click on it and hit add. And we'll take that back out. So right now we're just doing it, since we're just looking for a 7-digit number, we are just using the standard pound signs for numbers. And so you can just type this in. You can click on number and hit the add button 7 times, but a little easier just to type down in the blank. So you can see with this right here, we're actually doing kind of a 2-step process. So the first one, we're just looking for that 7-digit number. And that's how it's able to find the 8675048 out of that larger block of text. It just finds any match to a 7-digit number. Now that other piece of shorthand that was there was there was a pipe, the vertical bar character that's right above the enter key, and then we had 6 pound signs. And what that's doing is saying, look for a 7-digit number. If we don't find the 7-digit number, look for a 6-digit number. So essentially it's an OR. The pipe represents an OR. And the thing to remember here, so if you do have a situation where you can have a variable number of characters within the phrase you're trying to find, is the thing you want to remember is to put your largest phrase size first. So here we put the 7 digits, then we put the 6 digits. If we did it the other way, there might be a 7-digit number on the page, but as soon as it finds 6 digits, it's found a match and it moves on. And you can also see here that we have some options for stripping fixed characters in front of a template, stripping fixed characters after a template. And what those do, if we're looking for an expression on the page, let's say we're looking for invoice number, invoice NO, and then our 7 digits come after that. And that might be a situation where we're doing the full text of the page instead of just a zone. And in that situation, we wouldn't want invoice NO returned to our field, so we would strip the fixed characters in the front and just get our 7 digits back like we're doing right now. Same things with characters at the end. And then the find last matching instance is used a lot in conjunction with the money, the %money% template. And what that's doing is it's finding, usually it's the total on an invoice or a receipt, for example. So the last unit of money on a page, typically most invoices, is the amount due. And so you can just have it find the last matching instance, in which case it starts at the bottom of the page and starts looking up the page. And as soon as it encounters an amount of money, it records that in the index field. And then there's also our test area here. So there's text already in it pre-filled, but you can also enter your own text. You can even open a file and bring it in there. So in this case, you can see this one's kind of built around this job, so we've got it there. We can hit our test button, and it does find the 7-digit number in this block of text up here, 8675048. And then we'll hit OK here, and that'll take us back to our indexing and file naming. Order number works exactly the same way as the account number, but let's take a look at company. It's doing something a little bit different. So we'll edit again. Again, it's an OCR field. We enter our information here. You can see this time we're making the company be part of the file name. And then what's different down here, in our text matching type, we are doing a dictionary. So let's move on through. Again, we've got our zones here. And before I skipped on by it because I wanted to move on to the template matching, but you can see we do have some autocorrect options included here. And what those are allowing you to do are things like, checking which page we're going to actually look for these values on. So you have some options there, odd pages, even pages, pages that have a barcode on them, for example. So if you are scanning with barcodes, there's a barcode on a page, and then you're telling the system, okay, whenever you see this barcode, my other information is also on that very same page. And then replace multiple characters. We've got some presets in here. So if you're trying to get rid of things like all the punctuation marks and garbage characters there, they're going to throw off the OCR potentially. You can just strip all those out just by choosing that and then leaving the width blank. So you're replacing them with nothing. You can also strip out spaces, because sometimes that throws things off, where there might be, to our eye, there might be 4 spaces on a page, but the OCR only sees 2 spaces, and if you try and build that into your template for matching, you're just never going to get it right. So you just strip all the spaces out and then don't put spaces in your template. Makes things much easier. And then we also have replace with. So if you wanted to get rid of certain specific characters, so here I could say, let's say I'm consistently having it find an S when I'm looking for a 5. I'm in a numeric string, but it still keeps reading this S. So I can go in here and say that I want to take the look for an S and replace it with a 5. Okay, and then it puts it down here in my replacement field. These options over here involving the data type and the various text formats here of how characters can appear on the page, that's for handwriting recognition, which we're not really getting into in this video. That's ICR. We'll talk about that in a separate video. So you can see that there's, if we're talking about, like, say, for example, a survey, there's the different ways that the text might appear, and then we also have some options in terms of what type it is, you know, whether it's decimals, uppercase, lowercase, that sort of thing. So that helps it kind of fine-tune the search. But like I said, those are dealt with in a later video. So let's go to what's actually unique about this company field over the other 2 fields, and that's that we're doing a dictionary match. So a dictionary match means we have a list of values somewhere, and we're comparing whatever we see in our zone or on the full page with that dictionary. Now in this case, the dictionary is actually referencing a database, and that would have been set up on the database tab back in the main configuration wizard. Again, topic for another video. We won't get into that right now, but you can see here that we have a table called companies, and then within that there is a column called companies. So we've just given it both of those, and right now I can hit the load button and bring in all the values in that table. This kind of lets you check that you're looking at the right piece of data and that your connection is working, but it also, we have an option here to store those list values in the job file. So now when I come out of this job and I hit save, those will be stored there, and it doesn't really need to refer to the database anymore, which is handy if for some reason you're in a situation where SimpleSoftware can't maintain that connection to the database. You're working on a standalone system that doesn't have the internet access or what have you. You can just bring all those values in, store them within the job, and make things a little simpler in that situation. Also, your dictionary file doesn't have to be a database. You can hit the browse button here and, for example, just have a simple text file where there's just one entry per line in that text file of your different values. So it looks basically just like this looks right here. Let's talk about something else you can do within this type of matching, which is what we call actually a thesaurus match or a synonym match. So we're all over the reference shelf today. If we go to this dictated storage records, for example, I'm going to double click it here. Brings up this window where we need to enter some more information. And what we're doing here is, let's say there's a situation where dictated record storage, when we get their invoices, their name is a logo on that invoice, and it's just something the OCR can't read. So what we can do is give it other terms on the page that are specific to dictated record storage so that it knows it's seeing one of their invoices. So in this case, we're going to use the pipe character again, the vertical bar, and then we're going to give it, let's say, the address. Let's say they're at 1234 Main Street. All right, we put that in there. Okay, and you can see it brought that back into our list values. So now when it reads that invoice, if it sees dictated record storage or it sees the phrase 1234 Main Street, it's going to make a match either way, and it will return the value dictated record storage. It won't return 1234 Main Street. It's just using that for an extra match. That's a pretty handy feature. You do run into a lot of cases where either the company's name is in some font that's very difficult for the OCR to detect, or again, like a logo or just a bad scan or something like that. So it kind of gives you an extra level of automation so that you have other ways to check and you don't have to rely on the user to tell the system which company this is in this particular case. So let's move on out of that. And so that's the basics of creating that OCR field. We can set zones, we can read from the full page, we can tell it what text we're looking for either by templates or by dictionary matching. Also within the templating values, regular expressions are a possibility. So if you're doing something more sophisticated than what our simple A's and pounds can pick up for you, you are able to enter regular expressions into the template area. And also in this screen right here, when we're back editing our fields, you are able to directly enter into these fields right here. So if you just need to make a quick change to the template, add that second string, like the 6 digits like we were talking about, you can just type right here in this field. Likewise, you can choose how that field gets used here on this panel without having to go in and edit the actual field itself. So let's save those changes we made here. Tell it yes. And let's run the job again. All right, so we're back where we were. One of the things I always like to do in any index job is pull up the grid here, and so at a glance we can see if any pieces are missing. We can see these 2 are highlighted in red, and that's just simply those were blank pages that have been deleted by the system. They won't end up in our final records. But you can see everything has a value filled in for account number, order number, and the company. So we're in good shape there. Let's take a look at one other thing. Let's go back to the first record here. When we were looking at how to set up your index fields, I showed how to draw your zones in that interface within the configuration wizard. Well, you have another option here. So this is handy when, let's say, we get into our job, we've already configured it, and we realize that some of these invoices are printed on the page a little differently. They're slightly shifted. Things are up or down, left or right, and it would be handy if we could just redraw that zone. So we can go to the Set Field Coordinates radio button right here, and you can see there's the zone that I created earlier inside the configuration wizard. If I hover over it, it's going to give me a 1, so I know that that corresponds to the first index field. If I hover over this one, we get a 3, so we know that's corresponding to the company field, and so on. And so you can see in both cases it's looking at this very large sample area, but on the one hand we're matching the 7-digit number here, and in the other case we are matching the list value, which has tech type interfaces on it. And then the middle field, the order number is right here. So if we hover over that one, we get the 2. But I could, at this point, I could draw a new field. I could just set my cursor there, drag a new box, and it's going to ask me which field that corresponds to. That's my order number. I click OK. And then crucially, the one thing you want to remember here, if you do give it a new index field, a new zone rather, sorry, you need to go up here and go File, Save, and store that change. Otherwise, it won't be committed to your job file, and you'll lose it when you end this job. So, but as we were saying, we can see that everything has an index value, so I can really just go over here and hit Save All. And it's going to tell me that it's going to assign all those index values to each document, so we'll do that. Now it's assigned them. Do we want to release the batch? Certainly. And then it's going to bring up the output folder here, and you can see exactly what we talked about. We have a series of folders named by the account number, and then within that, they each have our output TIFFs, and those are named by the order number and the company. Of course, these can be PDFs. They can be pretty much any image format that you want. We're just using TIFFs for the simplicity of this demo. So that's kind of how you do OCR configurations, at least the basics anyway. So we talked about creating a new OCR index field, how you set how that field's going to be used in your final output. We looked at drawing a zone. We talked about how you can do the full text of the file so that you can get full text on the back end, or also for your indexing, if you need to find information out of the full text because it moves around, you don't know where it's going to be on the page. You got to look at everything and then just find something that either matches that list or matches that template or matches a regular expression. And then we looked at how you can redraw the zones actually in the job and not just in the configuration wizard. So I hope this has proved useful. If you have any questions, as always, contact us at support. We're here to help. We want to make things easy for you. And thanks for watching.